Welcome to the Performance Enhancing Podcast. It's like steroids for your brain. A podcast for people looking to live life at their peak potential, chock full of real-world tools and knowledge that you can apply in your life today. By providing you with a lens into the lives, beliefs, practices, and actions of those who are already living extraordinary lives, the Performance Enhancing Podcast will help you shift your mindset or create that change in your daily rituals and habits so you can explode with success in the areas of life that are most important to you. So get ready for another dose of Performance Enhancing Podcast with SatoriPrime. Here's your host, Ilan Ferdman.
Hello. Welcome back to another Performance Enhancing Podcast with your host, Ilan Ferdman. Well, today is a bit exciting for me because I did this interview. We probably recorded it maybe about 3 or 4 weeks ago at this point, but I had to come back and redo the intro because about 2 weeks after I did the interview with Travis Truett, him and his 3 other partners were written up in Inc.com about their new hot software. So it's kind of cool. I could say like, I knew him when. In any event, incredibly interesting interview about a group of very, very young entrepreneurs who endured crazy amounts of heartaches before they actually landed on their project, which is currently known as Ambition. So if you want to understand what it takes to go from failure to failure to failure to finally reaching some sort of success, you're absolutely going to love this story. In it, we actually talk about things like how to turn a horrible experience into fuel to drive you in your next venture, how to always bring yourself back to your why or your vision, the power of personal responsibility, vulnerability, and the problem of growing too big too fast. So my hat's off and congratulations to Travis, his partners, and Ambition for being written up in Inc.com. Massive acknowledgement. And for the rest of you guys, enjoy this interview with a stud young entrepreneur. Hi, everyone. Welcome back. Like I told you before, I got Travis Truett with me here. Really excited because I think you guys are going to glean a lot of information from this very young and very successful entrepreneur who's kind of got the story like the rest of the successful entrepreneurs, busting his ass and getting shit done. So, Travis, welcome to the show.
I appreciate you having me, man.
So, Travis, before, I usually don't like to give people bio or read that stuff. So, tell people a little bit about yourself in your own words and kind of what your story is, and then we'll delve into the stuff after that.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, Travis Truett, 28 years old, born and raised in Tennessee. Went to school, University of Tennessee, where I graduated. I basically went in as an engineer and got really bored with it because I realized I wasn't going to be able to talk to as many people as I wanted to. So switched to business. After college, ended up kind of taking what I refer to as a 2-year sabbatical. Ended up living in Europe, living out west, kind of like traveling, climbing, skiing, just like living on nothing. Like just amazing time. Really kind of helped me like find myself, like not knowing anybody. And then, kind of went down the entrepreneurial route. Started 2 companies before my current endeavor, which is Ambition. And here I am talking to you guys now.
Awesome. So let's kind of take people through a little bit of the journey, because I think it's always pretty funny when people are like, oh, Ambition, so successful, but like there's two companies before that seemed like really good ideas at the time, I'm sure. So when you went on your sabbatical, what were you doing then? Just traveling, right?
Yeah. So I would spend my summers and falls in a little tiny town called Zelensee in Austria. And I was basically a climbing instructor / just climbing bum. And yeah, basically, I was literally at the point where like when I was working, I was like staying in a hotel. When I wasn't working, I was camping on like riverbeds and like eating bread to like, it's awesome. And then in the winter and spring, I moved back to the States, and I actually did a stint in Park City, Utah, and then a stint in South Lake Tahoe, California, kind of doing the same thing, just skiing every day, working where I could, climbing when I could. It it was an incredible 2 years. I think about like a mentor of mine when I was about to graduate college told me, if there's any better time to travel, it is when you graduate. It's when you don't have responsibility. It's when you don't get locked down by a job. You're not used to the salary. And I took his advice seriously, and I just packed up and left, and zero regrets.
It's amazing. It's actually what I tell everyone that graduates. I'm like, they're like, what should I do? I'm like, go travel, go get a job in some other country and just explore the world. Good for you. So then, okay, snap back to reality. You're in the market and you decide, okay, I'm not going to go get a job. I'm actually going to start my own thing. So what was the first venture?
Yeah. So yeah, man. So I get back, and I basically said, I was like, well, so basically when I was in college, I did several business plan competitions with two of my buddies. And in the second one we did, I remember, we got through like the first round and the second round and the third round, and we had to like pitch to all these judges, and they told us, they said, listen, we're going to be honest with you. We don't necessarily believe or really know what you're talking about in terms of your idea, but we really, really like you guys. Like just seeing your guys' energy, seeing the way that you guys kind of go back and forth. We think that if you guys stick with it, you're going to make something happen. And we took that to heart. And so after my traveling, I kind of said, let's put the band back together. And, I talked to my buddies and we said, hey, let's think back to that advice we got in college. Let's start something. Let's start a company. Again, not knowing what that meant. We just said, let's do it. Let's buy a domain name and start a company. And all of us have always kind of been really big news junkies. And we had found ourselves always, like scouring the internet, trying, going to 50 different sources. All of us kind of had our own like RSS readers that were kind of just very chaotic. And we said, okay, let's just make a cleaner, more easy to use experience for consuming news. And then ideally, having really interesting news that we may not have discovered on our own, delivered to us. And we said, okay, so that's pretty cool. Like, people read news, people love news. Then we said, okay, the iOS store, is booming right now, and they're getting ready to launch the Mac store. So the Mac desktop store. We said, man, this is going to be a great new market. It's going to be new. We're going to be able to be a first mover. So, okay, perfect. Now we have our idea, and we have our market, and we have what we want to do. So now what? And we basically realized, well, none of us can program. None of us are technical. So basically the only way we're going to be able to build this is honestly, at the point, we didn't even really think like we need to find an engineer. We just figured, well, we're business guys, so we'll just outsource this, get our product, be done, and then sell it, and then just grow a business. And
the entrepreneurial dream.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, again, like thinking back is just, in a lot of ways, I kind of missed that naivete, but it was a good time. So, because back then, like, before in a lot of ways you get crushed by how hard it is to start a company. You're just like, man, like this is going to be so incredible. Like this is going to be the best time ever. Yeah. But anyway, so basically we said, okay, well, let's put some money together and outsource this. And I ended up going on, I think elance.com. I found a firm. I gave them our spec, and they basically came back to us. And they said, okay, this is going to cost $10,000. I was like, okay. So, my two buddies, they had some more money saved up. They had, they'd been doing in a lot of ways the real world thing. And I had kind of been doing, the dirtbag thing for 2 years now. So I said, okay, well, you know what? Like we're equals in this. Like I'm going to figure out a way to make ends meet. So I ended up, again, my parents still hate me talking about this. So I ended up
I like it already.
Yes. I ended up basically like backdooring my parents, talking to our insurance agent, and basically surrendering my life insurance policy that my parents basically been paying for since I was born. And then I sold my class ring. I went to like my old room, like at my parents' house, and just like found things that I could like sell and pawn or whatever. And I basically came up with the $3,000, and we had the money and we outsourced this idea. And so now here I am thinking we've done it. Like our product's getting built. I'm doing these conference calls with this Indian guy, 13 and a half hours away. I feel like I'm just this awesome businessman.
And you were how old at the time?
I guess I'm 24 probably.
Nice.
And so, we're going down this road, we have this like, oh, we're going to get our product in 8 weeks, and we're getting excited, and we're starting to like market it. I'm like teaching myself like just barely enough HTML just to like have like a website. And so anyway, kind of the 8 weeks comes around, and this firm says, "Hey, great news! Here's your product." And they sent it to us, and I remember opening it up and just being horrified with what I saw. I mean, it didn't work. It didn't even like connect to the internet. It basically just had like 5 like news sources built into it. I mean, it was just a complete disaster.
Wow.
And I remember just thinking to myself, I've just gone from like, haha, I'm broke, to like, I'm actually broke, like living on a couch, and now I don't have a product that I can sell. And just being like, yeah, like this isn't good. Like this is not what I saw coming.
Wow.
And I can remember, like, to be honest, I probably was depressed for a day, and then I was just mad at myself for a day for not being a better project manager. And then I had a pretty quick turnaround, and I kind of told myself that how excited and alive I felt in just the last like 10 weeks of putting my own money on the table and like talking to this firm in India, and like knowing that this product that I and my buddies dreamt up was being built, was one of the most rewarding experiences of my life. And I kind of quickly knew, like, this sucks, but this is my path, and I've just got to figure out where to go from here. And then kind of the second epiphany I realized was, and I've always been in love with just technology and new things coming out. And, I've been on a computer since, I was practically in diapers. And I knew that, like, if I was going to take this seriously, if I was really going to focus on this industry, I had to learn to program. I'm a big believer in order to be the most effective leader, you have to be in the trenches. You have to know what it's like to be in the trenches. And I said, okay, like, if I'm ever going to be an effective manager and leader of engineers, then I need to become an engineer myself. So I spent 2 things happened. One is that we started looking for investors to kind of get us out of this hole. We started looking for engineers to kind of help us, get started the right way. And then I also started learning how to program. And basically I spent every night and weekend just like programming, like writing code. It was miserable. It's like learning Mandarin, I would assume. I mean, it's just one of those things where you're like writing these like text games, and you just have like, you're just thinking to yourself, like, there's no way that this is ever going to translate into like writing a web app or something.
Yeah.
Anyway, I ended up, what's funny is the silver lining of this failed product is we started talking to some investors, and we found this group of guys in their mid 30s, and who'd been very successful in several ventures. They'd failed several times, but they'd been very successful. And we talked to them, and we gave them our business plan that we were proud of, and they kind of just like pushed it to the side, and they were talking to us. They basically weren't impressed with us at all. There's like, these are just a bunch of postgraduate kids that just want to start a company, whatever.
Yeah.
And as soon as we almost like, it's kind of funny, we're like almost trying to hide the fact that we had failed to basically outsource our product. And as soon as we brought that up, though, as soon as we said, hey, by the way, we didn't really want to bring this up, but like, 2 weeks ago or 10 weeks ago, whenever it was, we put our money together and we tried to build this product, and it failed. And, now our tails are between our legs. And that was kind of the moment when everything switched, and they're like, whoa, whoa, this is a game changer. Like you guys, you're telling me that you guys raised $10,000. You're telling me that you surrendered your life insurance policy. You're telling me that you like outsourced this, like all this stuff. And we were kind of just like, yeah, I mean, we did. And that's kind of when they said, okay, like you've already, in a lot of ways, you've already moved past almost everybody else that's trying to do this. Just the execution, even if it's failed, is so incredibly important.
Yeah.
And we ended up working with them. They gave us a little bit of seed money to find an engineer to basically get the product off the ground. And we launched it in the App Store. We got 25,000 users, which was exciting. And we actually had, in a lot of ways, we had a really evangelical core of people. Like, things were going really well, but we kind of realized probably about 9 months into it that we were the #1 news app in the Mac store, and we had 25,000 users. And that's a problem, because if that's what the market is, then you don't really have the growth that you need.
Yeah.
and we shut it down, and it was super emotional. A lot of my personal identity was tied up in that company, and it sucked, but we pulled the plug, and that's kind of the first story of the first company.
Amazing. I just want to recap a few things. Incredible story, by the way. I just want to point to a few of the things that you went through during that process so that people can kind of get the distinction of what you did like internally to get through it. So when everything you said, like that moment where you got the app and everything was kind of like, oh God, what the fuck did we just get ourselves into? So you were upset at yourself, you got angry at yourself, which is very natural, right? It's like, first it's like you're devastated, then you need to like point at something, so you get really angry.
Yep.
But what you did was you kind of brought yourself back to your why. I think the epiphany that you had when you realized, look, I was the happiest I've ever been for the previous 10 weeks. You realized at that moment what your why was, what your vision and mission in life was, and pretty much what you did in essence. And like, this is something that the listeners can do. When you're in that moment, it's always like, if you bring yourself back to the why, all that other stuff goes away because you get clear on, well, this is where I'm heading. This is just like a road block in that middle of it, but like, I still got to get there. So I thought that was awesome. And it stems from taking personal responsibility, right? So like at first it's like, fuck them, these idiots in India, blah, blah, blah. But then the next piece was you took personal responsibility. And then you said, you know what was missing so that I can actually do so this never happens again? And you go and grow your skill set. You go do something that's horrible and, you know, like a nuisance. You said like one of the worst things ever, but why? So you can actually grow your skill set to become the entrepreneur that you knew you could be. I thought those are two amazing takeaways. And then the other piece with the investors, what I heard is vulnerability. Like, it's easy to try to create yourself as someone who's amazing and like, that's all ego. It's like, hey, look at me. I'm this young entrepreneur. I'm a stud, blah, blah, blah. But you get to people who have been there, they know the journey. And they know that in order to become successful, you've got to fall on your face multiple times. And I think that's a really important lesson that you learned early on, which is, look, I'm human. Like, we fucked it up. And that's what turned the whole thing around, right? Because they see like these guys put not only their thought and like, oh, this is a great idea. We bought a domain, like we're going to be millionaires. It's like you went out and took some massive, massive action. And in the action, they saw winners, which kind of leaves me with the last thing is like a lot of people sit on the sidelines and talk about great ideas and rarely ever do anything with them. And I just want to acknowledge like you and your friends for putting your asses on the line at such an early age and just stepping up and being like, you know what, we're going to do this. And I love the fact that no matter what, you just kept going, which is huge. Hey guys, I just want to take a quick break here and let you know about our 10-day challenge. All you have to do is head over to SatoriPrime.com/10day, the number 10 day. And in it, we give you a 10-part video series that is absolutely changing lives, and it's completely free. It's a mindset shift in what is possible for you in your life right now. So I just want to read to you what someone has just written me. And they said, what did the 10-day challenge create for me? In summary, a plan of action. A man with a goal and a plan is unstoppable. Your 10-day challenge allowed me to take all that confusion and fear of my situation and see it was a period of transition. I have a plan. I've taken action and I'm implementing. Success is just over the horizon. And that could be the case for you. So head over to SatoriPrime.com/10day, the number 10 day, and grab your 10 free videos today and create a plan of success for you. Now back to the episode.
Yeah. I mean, in a lot of ways, I appreciate that. And I mean, yeah, in a lot of ways, I mean, looking back, I just never really seriously considered stopping. It's just, I don't know, it's just kind of just a very unified focus. And yeah, like talking about, the sideline, it's like, but there's been so many times in my life, whether it's been personal or professional, where I feel like I walk up to this imaginary line and I just never cross it. I just look over on the other side and I say, that's going to be pretty hard, or that's going to take a lot of time, or I'm just not ready. And I mean, one of the beautiful things about entrepreneurship and kind of making that first leap is, for us, I mean, even just with this, the experience outsourcing it, like crossing that imaginary line for the first time like it makes things so much easier to realize, like, I mean, yeah, like this is not the end of the world. Like we're just going to pick ourselves back up, and then it just makes, future decisions easier. And, I don't know, it's very empowering. I mean, it's such an incredible experience through and through to really kind of be, the master of your own destiny.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. I mean, that's kind of the path that we've all chosen here. Question for you though. You have two partners who are also your really good friends, right?
Yep.
So during that time, how did that dynamic grow, change, et cetera? Because I clearly heard the path that you went through and like the journey that you kind of went through with personal responsibility. What happened to those two guys and your partnership as a whole?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, it's been an interesting journey to say the least. These two guys, one of them, Jared, I've known since high school. So, I mean, when we started, with this journey, I mean, we were already kind of 10 years into our friendship. Brian, I met freshman year of college. So, I mean, 8 years in. And to be honest, like I've thought about that a lot because you always hear, differing wisdom from, don't do business with your friends to do business with your friends. And I think about that a lot. And I think that it comes down, well, to each his own. But for us, I feel like the fact that our friendship had already gone through so much, the fact that we had already been like 8 and 10 year friends was really the only way that we were able to get through a lot of what we went through. I kind of tell people now, take it for what it's worth. But when you're starting a company, either do it with like lifelong friends where you can like yell at each other and like really bare your soul, but then like in a minute go back to like being best friends, or do it with, like acquaintances and like people that you don't really know that well, so you can keep it strictly professional. Kind of the danger that I've seen is when you kind of do it with what I guess I would call like being new friends, being, 1 or 2 or 3 year old friends where you just don't have that trust built up yet. And that's where, the communication can break down and things can fall apart. I've been incredibly lucky with Brian and Jared that even though it still sucks sometimes, we just hash out our differences and we argue opinions and we just make the company and ourselves better for it. And kind of through that journey, I think that happened a lot. I think that happened a lot of like, I mean, starting a startup and if you are building a product and not a service, and if you're not an engineer, there's a lot of spinning your wheels in the beginning. There's a lot of just like self-doubt of like, why am I here? What am I even supposed to be doing? Like I can't really pick up the phone yet. Like we don't have anything to sell. And I think that, while I was the benefit to what they were able to do is while I was kind of learning to program and kind of really diving into the engineering aspect of it, they were basically realizing, okay, like from the business side of it, like whether our product is ready in 1 week or 1 month or 1 year, what do we need to do to be prepared for that? And that looks like, learning some of the harder businessy skills like SEO to just building, treating journalists and just important people in the industry like customers and building relationships and like helping them out.
Yeah.
And it just turned into, I mean, in a lot of ways, we're learning about software sales and learning about like process and customer support and how does Zendesk work and just like, so all of that kind of stuff. So, I mean, really, I look at it as in these, and then kind of the second one, Fireplug, in a lot of ways, it was what I would refer to with me and my two co-founders as just like a very hands-on MBA. We took 2 years and we basically just learned the entire time. We didn't really get a lot done to put on our resume per se, but we just learned the skills that we each individually needed to do our specific jobs. It's tough. I mean, we're very, very lucky. I see so many companies fall apart from the founder level and it's a shame, but I think a lot of it stems from communication and communication stems from trust.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, I remember when my brother and I partnered up, I think I was he had started the business maybe like 6 months before me.
Yep.
And I remember it was New Year's. So 2011, we started June 2011. So it was New Year's going into 2012. And in my house on New Year's, he pulls me aside and he's like, look, if we're going to take this company where we said we wanted to go, I need you to step the fuck up. Just like that. And I was like, what? Like, I thought it was busting my ass, all this stuff, right? And he's like, I'm carrying us right now and you are doing barely nothing. And it was like, I remember the moment when he told me, It was just like someone punching you in the stomach.
Yep.
But I knew he was right. You know, I knew that for where we wanted to go, I was just being lazy because I didn't want to, kind of like you with the programming. I didn't want to go into these arenas that were new and uncomfortable to me. I was happier just doing what I knew I was good at and just sticking to that. But he was right. Look, to take your company to where you want it to be, you're going to have to do shit that is new, uncomfortable, scary, annoying, frustrating, time consuming, but that's just what it takes. So I think if you don't have that ability, like, and you know, and we hugged, it caused a massive shift in our business. But I agree with you. That's like one of those things that if we weren't brothers and we were just kind of like new friends, you wouldn't really be comfortable necessarily to say that. I think you'd be afraid, like, oh my God, if I said this, you know, our partnership could disappear. Where it's like, if it's your best buds or your brother or whatever, you could say whatever.
Yeah, no, which is incredibly important.
Incredibly important. So, okay, let's keep going through this journey because it's really cool. So you decide to transition out of that company. Do you sell it? Do you just let it kind of wither away? What happens?
Yeah. So, I mean, we basically, we kind of, when we realized the writing on the wall, which, you know, I'd be the first to admit, we probably realized it way too late. We were not necessarily late, but like we probably should have shut it earlier. And we basically said, okay, what do we want to do here? And, and we basically told ourselves, like, okay, like we still really love this space. We think that this space, like, is still doing really well. It's where we're passionate. And we basically said, okay, let's take a lot of our code base, let's take a lot of our existing IP and kind of shift it into a new entity. And the entity was called Fireplug. And basically our thought there was that we are going to go mobile because that's where, you know, the world is. And we're going to focus on basically, the thought was that it's still kind of a reader, but you get credit for what you learn. We thought to ourselves, we really kind of dove into the space and said, what's really going on here? Like, why are people reading? Like, why are people sharing? Like, all this kind of stuff. And we kind of, it dawned on us that in a lot of ways, you know, we are like, Google basically gave the entire world access to information. Where we're still struggling as humans is bridging the gap between information and knowledge. We're being bombarded by information, but like, what are we actually learning from that? What do we want to learn? Why do we want to learn it? And we basically came up with this concept and this algorithm for being able to get credit for what you read. So now you have a reader. This basically, you know, a pretty basic RSS reader. But as you're reading, we're looking at things like time on site. We're looking at like where you pause. We're looking at like, you know, the mixture of all the sources you're reading. And we're basically saying, hey, we're basically going to give you credit based on what you're reading and what you're learning. Kind of with the thought being that, you know, a lot of times it's very subconscious, but like by telling you what you're actually doing, it makes it real. So being like, hey, by the way, you probably don't even realize this, but today you have been reading a lot about growth hacking and you've covered all these different bases from theoretical to practical. And you basically progressed down this track of growth hacking. Here's a couple specific excerpts that keep coming up. Like, you learned this today. And it's like really, like, we launched this and it was really like powerful feeling, like with a lot of our initial users, you know, they gave us the feedback of kind of just saying like, this is cool. Like, you guys are making things real to me that I didn't necessarily know. And we even got into the space of like being able to take, like what you were reading and then turn it into little quizzes and say, hey, by the way, you want to take your daily quiz on the 17 articles you've read today to see if you're actually retaining your knowledge.
Clever.
And then we kind of moved it even forward to basically saying, hey, like, you know, you are a level 6 in growth hacking. Well, instead of just like sharing you any article about growth hacking, anybody that's above you, whenever they share an article, we're going to automatically share it to you, so that basically now you're getting like people that are more knowledgeable in the field. They're pushing you down articles to basically make it more filtered. So anyway, we started this. We were really excited about it. This is man, it's funny. Like, I love Fireplug so much. Like, there's a big part of me that wants to bring it back. We were basically plagued, one, by technology. We made a lot of poor technological decisions. Very technical, like in terms of some of the databases we used, some of like we tried to get a little too flashy, a little too ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
We pre-optimized too much. We, in a lot of ways, quite frankly, we just didn't execute the way we needed to. I feel like we had a really good concept. We had some people fired up, and we just didn't execute. And basically,
what would you have done different?
Done different right now, we would have kept it much simpler, kind of across the board. We tried to do too much too fast. We didn't focus on let's make these like 1,000 users like really, really, really happy and like really get it to the point where they're spending like 4 hours a day on Fireplug, because these were like news junkies that read all day. We were basically just saying, okay, let's go big. Like let's cater to all these people and let's build out all these different tracks, and let's like make sure that like we can scale out to like crawling 10 million articles a day, and our algorithm is like this fast and like all this stuff. And we kind of just lost sight of like what's most important, which is just like, like make something that people want, make something that people use, and, like start small and then just grow it out like organically from there in a lot of ways. And we put the cart before the horse. And we kind of realized, we basically, after about 9 months of doing this, we realized that, yes, I mean, we had a user base, we had usage, but we a great place. And we built up a lot of just cruft that was going to be really hard to strip away. And again, a lot of it was like, for me personally, like focus, in some ways, focus has always been my biggest strength. In some ways, it's been my biggest weakness. And when it comes to the product, I've had to learn time and time again to like really, really, really focus. And Fireplug was an example of me just not doing that, kind of me leaving kind of like my core beliefs. And anyway, it's kind of like what the difference between Reticker was a very clean shutdown. We said, okay, on this date, we're just going to pull it. Fireplug, we kind of like, it was going along. Oh, and let me add that what made it really tough too was we had this like 3-month just ordeal of not being able to get in the App Store, which was just like, I mean, in a lot of ways, it killed our momentum. We couldn't get in for like all these different reasons, ranging from like this private API we use to like copyright issues of having RSS feeds like display their like logos of companies we didn't have permission to show. And that just took the wind out of our sails in a lot of ways before we got started and killed momentum. But anyway, Fireplug, as that was kind of going on, we kind of found ourselves like kind of individually like working on like different side projects. And we had 2 engineers that were kind of working on this side project for a company that had kind of used our services in the past. And this company is a big sales company, and they had always done these really cool sales competitions. And they'd kind of always done this competition of, they would run fantasy football for their employees and on paper. And basically they would say, okay, here are your metrics. And now you guys are going to form teams to compete. And it's just like this little cool thing they did that everybody loved. And we had 2 engineers, Wes and Jared, that ended up kind of like building out a little side project to say, hey guys, by the way, like instead of like doing this on pad and paper, why don't you just plug it into this system? And they used it. And what was funny is like, we literally gave it to them as like a joke, and we didn't even think that much about it. And they started using it. And it's funny, like not a lot of people, like really nobody knows the story. And like 3 months later, basically as Fireplug was kind of winding down, we decided we were going to we pulled the plug on like one Fireplug server, and we pulled the plug, and that server just so happened to have this little app that we created on it. And we pulled the plug, and seriously, we got like 30 emails like right away of being like, whoa, like where did this game go? Like everybody's like using this, like we can't go to this website anymore. What happened? We're just like, what are you talking about? And then we kind of realized, and it was this like epiphany and this aha moment of like, whoa, like we built something that we had all like these 2 engineers built. We had kind of all like laughed and joked and talked about it. And like this company loves it. And we kind of said, whoa, like it was this really like weird, exciting, crazy pivot where it was almost like, pause Fireplug. Like this is something that I think we might be onto. And that's kind of like day one of how Ambition was born, which is what we're doing now.
How many times have we spoken about on this show the fact that the biggest demise, or the things that you look at as the worst possible things, end up being a blessing in disguise? Incredible story about how something that they created as a pet project that they completely forgot about in the midst of shutting down their second business, which obviously, as he had mentioned, was a pretty big failure on their behalf, turns out to be a blessing, almost like the universe saying, no, guys, this is what you need to be focusing on. So that's how ambition got started. So in part 2, we actually talk about what ambition is, how they've been able to help tons of businesses like Dropbox, for example, become a sales machine. So make sure you come back and check out part 2 with Travis Truett, a true young gun entrepreneur. And until we meet again, have an amazing, amazing day, everyone.
Thank you for joining us on this week's Performance Enhancing Podcast. We've taken this pep talk and created a custom action guide so you know exactly what action steps to take now to grow your business. Just head over to SatoriPrime.com/podcast and download it for free. Also, please leave a comment and rate this podcast on iTunes. It'll help us get the word out. Thanks for listening. Now, go and implement. We'll see you next time.
Did you run through doors till you hit the floor?